Welcome back. I can't believe we're wrapping up discussions really soon. But we were talking about this issue with getting alerts out. And I know the minister's been saying repeatedly, Marco Alert? Marco's Alert is being tested. And I'm thinking, we've had 3 children now, and you're still testing. Just implement it. Even if you just do a mass text, like we was talking about in the break. If a mass text had gone out last night, somebody in that home most likely have a phone who would have gotten that text and say, oh, you right here, this you right here, and that would have been notified. If a mass text. We send mass text out for concerts.
Yes.
We send mass text out for advertising new rates from BTC and Alive.
Yes.
So we can't send a mass text out if a child is missing. That shouldn't take long to test. No. It's just a matter of partnering with the telecommunications companies and saying, listen,
yes,
until we test this thing, can we get you to send out a mass alert if a child is missing? That's a simple partnership.
Yes, and in addition to that, allow each instrument to make a unique sound to know you must pay attention to this.
Exactly.
Alert.
I mean, NEMA's done it.
Yes.
NEMA's done a testing with a mass thing. Yeah. Well, hurricane season once a year.
Yeah.
And they say natural disasters, but how often do those happen? But we can use that same test system. Again, this ain't rocket science.
No.
We're not having to reinvent the wheel.
We're not having to reinvent the wheel. It just takes somebody to execute and say, listen, let's put enough care into this to make sure that people are looked after.
And when we make the effort and have to use that amount of manpower, and we find that parents have been irresponsible, let's not stop. Some measures have to be taken
hold them responsible
as well. Yes.
Let's hold them responsible.
I'd say here, though, speaking in terms of the police has another level, which is urban police. Mm-hmm. And so they could have, and maybe they did, but that's another avenue that could have been
In other words,
used.
pass the information on to the centers in these areas
they go
who
right
know the
there,
communities.
And they know the community, they know the people in the community because they have that rapport.
Are these centers open at night?
But whether they're open at night or not, that telephone that they have,
work the phones.
Most times government for cell phones, okay,
Yes.
in the majority of cases, and so just being able to get that information out there. But I would like to say to persons out there, we are governed and guided by the Child Protection Act.
Yes.
And any incident such as this, where things are not as it ought to be, if it's mandatory for you to report any sort of situation as it relates to a child, if your gut say, this ain't right, if that still small voice in your head say, pay attention, pay attention, pick up the phone, it's always better to err on the side of caution. All right, and so that is the thing. Let us try to keep our kids as safe as we can. The time for them and the time for us goes by very, very quickly, and so whatever way that we could diminish any anxiety or any loss of life for our children, I think that is something that we need to be very, very aware of and cognizant of to make sure we protect our children.
Good point.
No matter the nationality or the gender.
Good point. Dr. Thompson, I want to ask you, because in this story we heard the child, we asked the child, why didn't you go home? Why didn't you walk home? And he said, as he saw it get dark, he was afraid, and he remembered hearing about what happened to the little girl. That brings me back to this is what we see happening in our country is affecting our young people.
It is. It is creating deep-rooted anxieties and fears. And what was astounding to me was that he was not far away from where he lived, which also said to me the peer group connection between the young people are not even what it should be.
Exactly.
He felt that if he had to go home, he had to do that by himself. And so I'm deeply concerned about the disjointedness of how we function as a community. When I was a young boy growing up, we had community. We had community. Bigger boys and young men will see to it that the young boys are walked home after we come from the court.
Yeah.
That is the sense of community that needs to be brought back to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I'm hoping that we're able to arrest this because when our kids are fearful, because we're thinking, oh, there's only adults who worry about this. These kids are afraid. These kids are afraid. And when we've seen one kid just pulled away out of their yard and yucked off by women, and we've seen another girl taken out of her house by a male and left on the street, that's frightening for children in a society where they want to feel safe.
And what I'd like to say to the wider public is this. Ever since 9/11, what we've noticed across the United States, the most misdiagnosed symptoms in children under 12 was depression
Wow.
and fear.
Wow.
Now, with social media, these children are in touch of all of the atrocities taking place on the globe. So to think that they are not developed enough to
Good
become
point.
afraid and depressed, you're wrong.
Good point.
My thing too, with getting our children and getting our parents to be in sync, it has to be where the parent need to be a parent,
Yeah.
not be. There's a line between parents and friends, and so you need to know when you see the look, you know you're approaching the line.
Exactly.
And so my thing too is being able to set the standards, set the guidelines
Yes.
for your children to follow. And if you don't do it, here's what is going to happen. You're going to have fallout.
Yes.
And so for us to catch them, mind you, there are still some good out there.
Yes.
There's still
Yes.
some good parents, and so we
Yes.
want to acknowledge that,
course.
that aspect of it. There's still some good Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and everything else, Girl Guides and all. All of that is still good. And so it is for us and even for our urban centers, for our children to know where they can go to have good, clean guidance,
Yeah.
good, clean activities that they could participate in, and to make themselves proud and to make their parents and us as a nation proud. And so we need to be able to see how best that we can harness and capture these children who are faced with these situations where they are depressed. And it's also on us to acknowledge and see and be aware when we see that child looking this way. And sometimes when you ask somebody, how you doing? And they say, fine, thanks.
Yeah.
And then in the same breath, and they say, but I got a headache. You are not fine. But we have become so conditioned to saying we're fine. And sometimes it is that we need to be able to say, I need help.
Yes.
Wow. Acting Director, I know social services must be overwhelmed. There's so much going on regarding the social fabric of our society. I don't know how you ever have enough manpower to address it. I know you've been obviously visiting with the last victim who was abducted and is now back home. Have you been able to make visits to your department with that family?
We're doing the investigations, and so it's still under investigations and trying to see how best that we could help the families in distress or in this crisis as move to be able to move forward.
And Clint, every child needs to know his home phone number
Yeah.
and his parents' cell phone numbers. And whenever you are away from home beyond the time that you should be there, a call should be made.
Very well said. Acting Director and Dr. Thompson, thank you both for joining me on the show tonight and sharing words of wisdom. Again, you have counseling, you have help available to you, the National Parenting Program. Dr. Wayne Thompson, please access help if you need help. And let's make sure our nation's youth are protected and feel safe again. Thank you both for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much.
And that's our show. Thanks so much for joining us. On behalf of all of us here, I'm Clint Watson saying good night.